Hey guys, Zane here, and welcome to Mr. Armageddon Builds. Today we are featuring a fun little project that I put together in celebration of Dune once again coming to the big screen. Now, Dune has been one of my favorite books for probably over 20 years now, and I'm super excited for this version to hit theaters. In this project, I built a Crysknife, which in the novel is a blade made from the tooth of a sandworm. This is 3D printed in parts, and then we glue everything together, sand it, hit it with some primer, and then give it a nice coat of paint. Let's get started. And here we're showing the print in progress. You will notice these small discs I have kind of on the side of the pieces. That's just to keep them adhered better to the bed itself because there was some lifting that was occurring. So these adhesion discs just kind of keep things in place. About 3 hours left in this print, so we'll fast forward here to the next step. Alright, so now we have all the parts printed out, so time to get to the glue. But first off, just wanted to show the stand I made that has the new movie logo embedded into it. Thought that was a nice touch there. We're going to be using both E6000 for a strong, flexible hold, and then super glue for quick adhesion, just to kind of keep things in place while the E6000 dries. Now there will be a few seams we'll have to deal with, and so we're going to use some green stuff from Tabletop Miniatures to fill the gaps, and then we will sand, prime, and paint. And here we're going to apply a pretty liberal amount of glue between these two pieces. And then once we get things lined up, we'll go ahead and use a compression clamp to keep things in place while it dries. So for this part, again, I'm using a combination of E6000 and super glue. And the super glue dries pretty quick. The E6000 takes a bit more time. Alright, so now the glue is dry, we're going to go ahead and take care of the seams that we have. First one here up top of the blade, we have a small gap we'll take care of. And then on the back of the knife, by the hilt, we have a gap that we'll fix. Now you can use the putty base green stuff. It's the kind that's blue and yellow. You mix together, it turns green, and then you put it in the gaps. I'm actually going to use the liquid green stuff, which is a bit easier to apply in these really small seams, and so I'm going to go that route. And so I'm just using one of my model brushes to apply the liquid green stuff. It goes pretty well into the cracks. Just kind of brush it in and then smooth it out. And again, we'll clean this up with sandpaper when we're all said and done. So hitting the hilt now, and then now moving over to the blade. Alright, so with the green stuff dry, now we're going to go ahead and utilize some sandpaper just to clean up the seams and make them look like they're all one contiguous piece. I'm going to go ahead and start with a 220 grit, and then I'll move over to 320, and that should remove any of the lines and serrations that we cause. So that's what we're going to start with. And let's kind of fast forward this because this part's kind of boring, but it's an important step. So after hitting it up with some 320 grit sandpaper, now we're going to go ahead and apply some surface primer to fill in any other small gaps and just give it a nice coating that the paint will adhere to. So this is a shot of the aftermath in the garage, just hitting up just like spray paint. And once it's dry, we are ready to go start painting. Now to paint these knives, we're going to use a combination of airbrush and then standard paint brushes for some detail work. And I've gone ahead and chosen to go with bone white color for the base. I think it's appropriate, being that this is a tooth of a sandworm. And so again, we're going to start with the airbrush and then move over to a detail brush to fill in some highlights. And you'll notice here, this is being housed inside a modified storage tote that I made that basically has a filter in the back that kind of helps suck any air and particulates out of the spray area. So I made this as a way to, house all my airbrush materials, but then when I'm actually doing a project, it's got built-in removable LED strips and this filter fan, and it works really well for these smaller projects. So pretty proud of this setup, and it works awesome. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and fast forward here because this process takes a bit, and so we'll watch it probably at about like 3x speed. I do multiple coats of the bone white just to get a nice layering effect, and we'll move on to the detail work once that's done. Alright, so at this point we have about 3 coats done on each knife. Again, I am making 2 knives here, one for a friend, one for myself. And so, again, 3 coats, looks pretty good. I'm liking the base color. And so now we will move over to some detail work. So now we're moving over to the model brushes, and we're going to go ahead and paint the hilt and the separator between the handle and the blade. And for that, we're going to utilize gunmetal gray. It's going to give it a nice kind of metallic sheen. And so let's go ahead and do that and fast forward this to the next step. All right, so now's the fun part. We're going to utilize a wash to basically look this knife look nice and gritty, like it's been used in the desert world of Arrakis. And a wash is essentially like a type of ink, and so you basically are going to pull it into certain areas to kind of create shadows, and again, just give it some textured color. And so we'll go ahead and do that. It's you got to be careful with wash because you can go overboard pretty quickly, but just experiment and you'll do fine. Now with this wash, there's a few techniques you can utilize. So first, I'm just going over kind of the flat edges and whatnot. But then one of the things you can do is you can kind of pull the wash into these low points and crevices, and it darkens it up a lot, and so it gives it kind of a good depth. A sense of depth and again that kind of dirty look that we want. And so I'm going to do that both in these pockets in the blade and then also on the handle on these low points and these little kind of crater looking things. We're going to get a bit more wash in there, pull it in, and give it that darker look. Okay, and so here's the finished product with the wash steps completed. Again, the depth it provides is really cool. Now, one thing that I did choose to do, which is kind of optional, is I took my one of my brushes and used that bone white again, just hit some of the high points at the top of those craters, those crests, just to, again, kind of get a bit more of that the depth look, having those higher points being a little bit lighter, and then the wash in those deeper points. So I like the way it turned out. I think we're good here. Now it's time for a clear coat. And so again, this is just to make sure your colors don't get smudged and messed up. So a good protecting coat. And with that, we are done with this project. I am really happy with how these turned out. They look great, and I'm excited to put it on my display shelf. Well, thanks for joining me for this project. I'll post the STL file in the video description. And if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. Enjoy the new movie. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend reading the books as well. Thanks, everyone. Take care.